The realms are graded. This is described in the Sri Upadeshamrita. Is this okay so far?
Yes.
Yeah? Everyone all right? Okay. So it describes, Rupa Goswami describes the graded realms. He says, Vaikuntash janito vare hari Vaikuntash janito vara marupuri yatrapi ratsotsavad vrindaranya mudara panina ramanat tatrapi govardhanaha. That he's describing Vaikuntash janito vara. Vara means better. So better than Vaikuntha. Vaikuntash janito vara marupuri is Marupuri. And then he says, Vaikuntash janito vara marupuri yatrapi ratsotsavad vrindaranyam udarapani ramanat. So better than Mathura, Puri is Vrndavan, the forest of Vrndavan. Sorry, I have to start at the beginning. Vaikuntash janito vara marupuri yatrapi ratsotsavat vrindaranya mudara pani ramanat tatrapi govardhanaha. Better than Vrindavan is Govardhan. Vaikuntash janito vara marupuri yatrapi ratsotsavat vrindaranya mudara pani ramanat tatrapi govardhanaha radha kundam ihapi gokulapate primamritap lavanat kuryaras yadvirajato giridite sevam viveki nakaha. So then he describes how beyond Govardhan there is Radhakund. And in this way, Rupa Goswami is describing the hierarchy of excellences. Of course, all of them are excellent, and they're described oftentimes, these various dhams, in terms of perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. That's a very useful sequence, because no one wants to disparage any of the realms, so nothing wrong with perfect, right? But how about more perfect, and then most perfect? So there's variety in the spiritual world. It's not all one. There are various qualities to the various dhams. And so Mathura Dham is glorified throughout the Shastra. For instance, in the Kartik Mahatmya, which Prabhupada quotes in the Nectar of Devotion, it is described that if one spends time in the district of Mathura during Kartik and tries to follow the general process of the Kartik Vrat, which is that you should offer a lamp every day to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then Krishna becomes inclined to award pure devotional service to such a person, even if that person is ordinarily not considered to be a very exalted or serious devotee. But you can take advantage of going to Mathura, district of Mathura. That's Krishna's hometown. He was born there, right? And the whole area too, it includes Vrndavan. Because when you sign your immigration form where you're going, that's always an interesting event when they're asking where are you going to stay. And it seems like a great privilege, doesn't it? When you're going to India and going to Vrndavan, and then you fill out the form and they say, where are you staying? And you say, I stay in Vrndavan. And leaving Vrndavan, coming back into Delhi, we notice, of course, the vibration starts to change from Vrndavan, where you hear Radhe Radhe everywhere. In fact, the rickshaw people, when they want you to move out of the way, they say Radhe Radhe, Radhe Radhe. When you get to Delhi and you see the duty-free shop again, you know that the vibration is changing. You're not necessarily in the Dham anymore, but still there's a few people hanging around and they see that you just came from the Dham. Why? Because, well, your cloth looks a little ragged, you smell like smoke, and you look blissful. You can see it in the countenance of someone who's spent time in the Dham. They look different, and one who spends time in the Dham feels differently, feels different. And so then a few of the workers, they'll come up beaming and they'll say, Vrndavan, 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 Vrndavan. Like it's an inside thing, like, I know where you came from. I wish I didn't have to work here at this stinky airport. But you're lucky, they're saying, through their eyes, that you got to stay in Vrndavan. And indeed, we are lucky. The Dham is revealed by the Guru Parampara. The Acharyas show us where the Dhams are. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed where Vrndavan was, all the different places, Radhakund. And through his lineage, the various deities were established. The grandson of Lord Krishna put up various deities and places, and we know the Goswamis excavated holy places, looking at maps and re-establishing temples, having them built. Quite an endeavor. And Vanamgato yad harimasriyeta. One should take shelter there. This is the admonition. But there's a very considered way in which one should go there. And that is that we shouldn't go there for a vacation. We should also not go in there for National Geographic picture taking. Because once I had a camera and I was with the senior godbrother I had mentioned before, who was very kind to me because he chastised me more times per hour than any other godbrother I know. And I've had a few of them, especially when I first joined, that were expert at that. But I was taking pictures, and he'd look and see where I was taking a picture, and he goes, "Why are you taking a picture of that?" He said, "That's National Geographic. That's not important." And so we should keep that in mind when we go to the Holy Dham. Prabhupada writes a little bit more about this. I'll enter into evidence. Oh, I don't have time. I just got started, but we're having more sessions on this later. We'll go more deeply in the topic. So let's take some reflections and a question, and I'll try to be brief in responding. Yes, Prabhu?
Take the micro?
It's just now coming. It'll be here in 1 minute of Brahma.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, Hare Krishna tout le monde, merci. So you say that Govardhan is non-different from Krishna. That's what I try to understand. And in the same way, Prabhupada give us this dam that we have in France. Can we say that it's non-different from Govardhan and also non-different from Krishna also?
Yes. Araja Bhagavan Vrajeshitana Yastad Dhamma Vrindavana. This is Chaitanya Manjusha, which expresses the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the verse I just quoted says that the Dham of Vrindavan is non-different from Krishna himself. There's no difference between the Dham and Krishna. And when, as I mentioned before, a pure devotee reveals the Dham. Also, a pure devotee creates Dhams. Bhavad vida bhagavatas tirta bhuta swayam vivo tirta kurvanti tirtani swantak stena gadabrita. This was the advice or the observation of Yudhishthira, who said to Vidura that you're a walking tirta, holy place, because you carry the personality of God within your heart, and wherever you go, you purify even the holy dhams. That's the power of a pure devotee who is accompanied by the internal potency, by dint of his or her advancement in devotional service. So when pure devotee comes to a place, then the Dham manifests from the heart of such a person. In fact, all the deities who are the center of the Dham, as we know from Sri Brahma Samhita, Sahasrapatra Kamalam Gokulakyam Mahatmadam Tat Karnikaram Tat Dhamma Tadanam Shansha Sambhavam. The holy Dham of Goloka and Gokula are described as a lotus, and it has millions of thousands of petals, that are the extensions of the Dham, and in the center is Radha and Krishna. And it's pervaded by the mantra, which glorify the divine couple. So when a pure devotee comes to, for instance, which part of France are we in? Southern? Central, right in the center. So central France, then the place is never the same, as we can see. We're sitting in a Dham now, because Krishna is the center. And the holy name is pervasive here. This is a Dham, but it manifests from the heart of a pure devotee who carries the Dham and then manifests Dhams in various places. And yes, they're non-different. These are embassies of the spiritual world. So a French person who has no idea about the Vrndavan or the spiritual world can come here to this embassy and experience Vrndavan for him or herself, and then become absorbed in that. And when they go to Vrndavan in Mathura, India, they'll also hear the same vibration. And so these Dhams are identical. Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you started off by discussing the embassy.
Yes.
So,
I think that needs to be turned on by somebody, please.
Would we say that New Mayapur is like an embassy? Because, for instance, in Europe, there may be maybe half a dozen, 6 other places where Prabhupada personally stayed, which are no longer temples as such from external view. Do they remain dhams even though they're not being engaged in the service of the Lord? Or is it like an embassy which can be moved, but it's still, it's still the connecting point, you could say?
They're always there, but sometimes the Dham is manifest and sometimes it's not manifest to our vision. The Dham is eternal, but just like Vrndavan, the various holy places there were unmanifest for some time until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers came there and revealed them. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed Radhakund. Nobody knew where it was, but he had an inkling. He went to the area and then he found a pond and started taking bath there, and the local residents were quite amazed. And then he said, "This is Radhakund. He ought to know. He's Krishna himself. He was there." And so he revealed it. So although it's there, it must be revealed or re-revealed by the pure devotees.
That's for the spiritual, understanding of Vrindavan. But I was thinking in terms of temples, like, let's give an example. Schloss Rettershof in Germany, Prabhupada spent time there. It's no longer being used in the service of Krishna directly. Does it still remain some kind of, how is it? Is it still some dham or what? Prabhupada stepped there, devotional service, deities, chanting, everything went on.
Yeah, definitely. It needs to be revived. It's like Chernobyl. Is there any radioactivity around there anymore? Yes. They go around with a Geiger counter. It's like, hey, it's still here. And that's what Mahaprabhu did. He went with a spiritual Geiger counter. It was like tick, 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 tick. Of course, there's subtleties to this. There's perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. We talk about different dhams. Shivaram Maharaj, in his book about the establishment of Vrndavan in Hungary, talks a lot about this, the difference between the dham and how a dham is established in Hungary or elsewhere. But the effect of a pure devotee walking in a particular place is indelible. And some may remember, some may not remember. And we find that quite frequently, even within the Holy Dham itself, various places that need to be remembered or revived by hearing and chanting and remembering the particular history there. That's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta went to such great lengths to write about these places, because the material world is constantly in flux, and people who are maintaining a particular dham, then pass on, and do their descendants naturally take it up? Sometimes not. Sometimes they don't have the money. It becomes dilapidated. It becomes hidden. And then somebody else will come along later and reveal that place. But it remains a spiritual place because it's been touched by Krishna or his devotees. I mean, that's mentioned in the verse I quoted from the Upadeshamrita, that there are various reasons why one place is better than the other. That's also true. But some of them have to do with, Krishna went to the forests of Vrndavan, and therefore that's better than Vaikuntha. Vaikunthas janito vara, marupuri yatrapi rasotsavad, Vrindaranyam udar pani ramana. That means he enjoyed pastimes there in Vrindavan, therefore it's better than Mathura Vaikuntha, because of the quality of the pastimes. So perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. Prabhu?
In that same thread, we see on the first canto, the early editions, there's a depiction of Navadvip Dham within Vrindavan. So I'm interested to understand, how does Jagannath Puri fit into that? Is that within the realm of Vaikuntha or Mathura?
Yeah, that's a Gupta Vrindavan, because there it's a Vipralamba Bhav of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is the intense mood of Vrindavan, goes on in Jagannath Puri. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu repairs to that place, which is like another room in the same house, as he described to his mother. So I'll go to that place, same room, or maybe she's the one who said it. He said, I'll go to Jagannath Puri, that way there's a corridor between Navadvip and, as we know, between Navadvip and Puri. All the residents of Navadvip every year will go to Jagannath Puri to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they just go from one room in the house to the other. You don't leave the Dham when you go from Navadvip to Jagannath Puri, nor do you leave Vrndavan, because it's a Gupta Vrindavan. And there, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, reveled in his final pastimes in the Gambhira, in the intense moods of separation from Jagannath. So you'll find the overflowing mellows of Vrindavan. All the songs there are about the pastimes of Krishna and the gopis and so forth. And all of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most intimate pastimes took place in Jagannath Puri. So it's also an extension of Vrndavan. Or there are various ways of looking at it. Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj will try to put forward the case that it's the more exalted Dham, better to stay in Puri than to Vrindavan, but that's because of Bhakti Bias. And Bhakti is a kind of bias. And everyone who's a devotee has a sense that, yeah, this is what I like the best, and therefore they give their statements why it's better than the other place. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur preferred Govardhan in Vrindavan because he said, we'll keep Radhakund above our head. Although it says clearly at the end of Upadeshamrita that the ultimate goal of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is to reside in Radhakund. The way one resides in Vrindavan or in Radhakund isn't necessarily just to move in. And I'll stop with this point, but it means that we should be careful. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that you should live in Vrindavan always. If you can't be there physically, then you should live there within your mind and heart. So if you're living here, you can cultivate that mood. It does help to go to Vrindavan. During our lifetimes, if we could make the pilgrimage to Vrndavan, as suggested by Prahlad Maharaj in today's verse, Vanam gato yat dharamashriyeta. You should try to go there and take shelter. My personal experience is going to the Dham and spending time there means that you develop a relationship with it. Because the Dham is not different from Krishna. And if you go there and serve the Dham and you hear in the Dham, then you start to develop an affection for the Dham. And you think, let me be in the Dham. And then you can think of the Dham. And that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's recommendation or order, that live in Vrindavan. But it means live there within your heart. Some people move to Vrndavan and they're thinking, I wish I was in Delhi because I could watch a video right now. I won't do it in Vrndavan, but maybe I'll go to Delhi and I'll watch a video and come back. And somebody might be in Delhi or the middle of France for that matter and be pining for Vrndavan and think, I wish I was in Vrndavan and I'm not qualified, and therefore they're feeling separation for the Dham. They're more in Vrndavan than someone who maybe have moved into Vrndavan and then became entangled in mundane thoughts and so forth. So therefore, as we'll discuss later from some of Prabhupada's purports and instructions, when we approach the Dham, we should be very careful. Prabhupada once said, you can stay there 3 days or 3 years. 3 days means you go there very carefully and offer obeisances to Krishna Balaram and be in some of the kirtans and so forth. 3 days, so you don't make any offense, and then go. Or 3 years if you have service. When we go to the Dham's main point is you should have some service there if you're going to stay a long period of time, because oftentimes people go to the Dham and think, I'll hear and chant 24 hours a day. And then they get there and you find out, yeah, you still got to find out where to eat, right? Because you are hungry, right? And then it's like, you're in the food line, do you have a plate? I don't have a plate, you need a spoon. All the other types of things well up in one's life, and it becomes a situation where one might become a desperado in the Dham. And that's also not ideal. So we have to cultivate the relationship with the Dham very carefully, and one can do so from here in France, being in this Dham, but cultivating knowledge of the Dham through hearing and chanting, but also visiting. Thank you very much. I'm sorry that the time ran out so quickly, and we'll continue the topic in just a couple minutes. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Vrndavan Dham ki jai, Vancha Kalpataruscha, Kripa Sindhaveva, Patitanam Pavanibhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha, Nanta Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Thanks, Margaret.